the picture. And other than drinking coffee, I got nothing else to do.
Me too. It's the only way to start the morning, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen again, Brett. Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure.
Very happy to have you. I really appreciate you doing this for me and just giving me a moment of your time. I know you're busy, of course, like we'd said earlier. I guess that might be a good place to start, Brett, with a lot of people in Calgary know what you're doing, but maybe for some others, tell me about Rooftop Patio and Kaylee's, etc.
Well, I'm one of the lead shareholders in the Kaylee's group, and we made the decision a couple of years ago to cover in a patio in downtown Calgary. The landlord approached us, said, would you guys like to use this patio? And we first thought some outdoor barbecues, some umbrellas, and some trellises, and we might have something kind of interesting. Here we are 2 years later with an 8,000 square foot weather managed structure, heating, lighting, audio, visual, sound. We've got it set up to be a concert venue. It's a wedding venue. It's a bar. It's a pub. It's everything except a sports bar. And yet it's got great TVs. So who knows, during the playoffs, maybe we are a sports bar. But no, it's come together beautifully. And my partners, which is mainly Chad and a guy named Matt Blaney, who runs the restaurants, are so dialed in. And we're just waiting for a thumbs up from the province to say we are indeed a patio.
So what does that entail? Like, how could you not be a patio per se?
Well, you're kind of on the same camp as my side.
That's the bylaws.
The big issue is size. We can hold 250 people with COVID compliant seating. And one of the questions is, how will people, the cancel culture could attack the province for letting a large patio, because that was maybe never the spirit and intent of having patios open. And we happen to fit the window of a patio. Now, so we've gone to the province and we're actually having it inspected. It's open on the side, so it's wide open in the sense that air blows through. We think we can get there, but it's just one of those questions. I'd rather, sometimes in my life, I work for forgiveness instead of permission. I'm going with permission this time.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, trying to reincarnate the old days, right? That because the original Kaylee's. Everybody talks about the old Kaylee's, that rooftop patio being the classic. That was the go-to spot in Calgary, right? Is that what you're kind of envisioning, or something further?
Well, yeah, we've taken the game up about 12 notches. The old one was you had to wander up 3 sets of stairs, stand in a line. Fire code was suspect. The how to get a drink, how to get food. You just wanted to be there. So no, we've certainly captured the name Rooftop. We're pretty happy to do that. So the Rooftop restaurant's a big part of my life. I've got a couple of buildings I'm building in Windermere, just outside of, sort of one of the places that a lot of Calgarians go. And we're doing a bunch of light industrial and restaurants, gas stations, stuff like that out in there. I'm expanding a power plant in central Alberta, and we're doing one of the most energy efficient ultra green. It's heat recovery only. In terms of increasing the power capacity at this power plant up near Grand Cache, Alberta, middle of nowhere.
Nice.
It's one of the few work sites I'm aware of that has cougars, moose, and bear visiting it every week. So it's remote.
Head on a swivel when you head out there, for sure.
Watch yourself. Exactly. The biggest part of my life that I'm missing is travel. I used to get to. I've got stuff in Toronto, I've got stuff in Nashville, I've got stuff in Calgary, in Regina and Saskatoon, certainly Kelowna and Vancouver. And it's just harder and harder to get to those places. But I'm a huge fan of what we're trying to do as a community in terms of vaccines. I'm not convinced lockdowns are being done quite right. I'm not convinced in particular that the headlines are correct. All we hear about is COVID.
Well, it's negative.
Yeah, it's all negative. There's nothing upbeat or positive. And not to belabor it, but we lose more people to cancer, smoking related cancer every year than we have COVID. So it's not to diminish the loss of lives in COVID, but it's to say, let's make sure we balance how we do it. And I've always loved Jason Kenney's line. We're trying to balance lives and livelihoods. So he's one of the few leaders who's actually respected that. He's getting vilified by everybody anyway.
Can't win.
But every leader in Canada is getting vilified right now. And I genuinely believe that once we get through the vaccine rollout, we get enough antibodies from people who've had the vaccine or probably had COVID. come summer. In fact, that's another point is Kenny is the only leader in Canada who has a rollout plan for recovery. No one else has laid out a plan. And has the media picked up on that? Have the haters picked up? And there's haters on the left, haters on the right. There's a doctor in Edmonton who thinks he's the smart, second coming of the Lord. I think he's a borderline idiot when I listen to him, but because he's a doctor, he's got credentials.
Of course.
So stuff like that, but everyone's attacking. And very few people, I struggle with the anti-vax crowd. I struggle with the anti-mask crowd because they don't come up with something better. They're just anti. I want my freedom, and I don't get it. Anyway, I'm ranting. Back to the topic at hand. What do you got?
That's great. You know what? You can't. That's why I like these. Honestly, I've only done a few myself. We don't have to pick a topic. I mean, we like to touch on a few things, but COVID's all around us right now. It's everywhere, right? And it's consumed our lives. But I think you're right. A lot of the other provinces have been scrambling and reacting. And I think Kenny's really tried to be proactive in all this. But like you mentioned, I want to touch on you obviously mentioned, hey, more people passing due to illnesses, diseases such as cancer. And, I touch on that in myself in my company in the GND, but tell us a bit about your cancer and how you defeated it and or how it's changed or affected your, I guess, view on life in general or perception on things.
That's an interesting one. I've been very public about round 1 and round 2, and I'll come to round 3 in a moment. But round 1 was 20 odd years ago, and 20 years ago, in fact, right now, and that terrified me. And it terrified me because I didn't have what I wanted in life. And that was relationships with my family, relationships with friends. I was just busy with office, busy with the things that, with the benefit of hindsight, don't really matter. So cancer gave me an opportunity to slow things down. And in fact, I somewhat facetiously point out, cancer might have saved my life in round 1, because I was in a work-life spiral that wasn't healthy. I wasn't happy and not good. Anyway, 15 years later, we discovered metastatic cancer in my metastatic tumors in my lymph nodes. And so we had to treat that. And sometimes I'll tell you that the side effects of radiation on me were harder than the cancer.
Is that
cancer
right? Hey?
Never really caused any symptoms, but I can tell you that the radiation did. Radiation cystitis, it's called. So it's burning and bleeding from the inner parts of your body. Anyway, went through round 2, and round 2 was just reinforcing because I'd gone through the major shakeup on round 1. Round 2 wasn't nearly as rattling. It was just something I got to go take care of. Then about 2 years ago, we discovered that cancer was back yet again, and I had a tumor in my spine. And I don't mean to be so pedantic about it, but tumor in the spine, radiate, done. I didn't miss a day of work. We had,
wow.
And in fact, much to my delight, I'll tell you this story. First round, 2 rounds of treatment, I was down in the States, once in Arizona and once in Florida. But round 3, I stayed in Calgary. Tom Baker, extraordinary, state-of-the-art equipment, state-of-the-art people, state-of-the-art everything. And I can tell you with confidence that if I ran into another problem, I'll stay with the Tom Baker. I was really, really, really impressed. We leapfrogged. When I did my first round of cancer treatments in the States, it was considered experimental. Now it's every day, and it's available in Calgary, and all the equipment is here. All of the equipment, and we're upgrading constantly how we're going about this. And anyway, there's lots to that story, but
for
round
sure,
3 is behind me, and not to make fun of it, but round 4. Fuck you. Come on, bring it on.
Totally.
I'm ready.
Yeah, no, that's the attitude you have to take for sure. I echo your sentiments. I didn't have cancer, but of course I've had a couple of heart surgeries now in my young life.
Geez.
I'm 46, right? So I just had my second in September 2nd of 2020. But to echo your sentiments, everything that I experienced in the heart ward, the Libin Clinic, the Libin Institute was unreal. Just, who's that?
Sorry, since he's here.
Yeah, bring him in.
One of my staff at home isn't around to take care of the dog. So this is Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash, nice.
Came and poked me in the side. Anyway, he's pretty chill about everything in life. Anyway, tell me more about the heart.
That's
the Libin Heart Institute.
Yeah, I wanted to I echoed your sentiments in terms of the Tom Baker. Yeah, the Libin Institute for me. All I tell everybody is the care that I received from the nurses, from the surgeons. Like we can bitch about Canadian healthcare all we want, but when it comes really down to the nitty gritty, we can bitch about lines and waiting for MRIs, etc. When it comes down to it, they're there. And I think in Alberta primarily too. My mom, when I went through my surgery, my mom came in from Toronto. She was blown away by the care and how good they were here. She raves about it too. So
When a lot of people overlook the fact that every disease comes with a mental health challenge.
right. Sure.
And
Yeah.
of course, because you're scared, you're terrified, you're uncertain, you don't know who's got your back, you don't know which way to turn. And that's where I think your point is absolutely valid, that the people were a big part of it. I had to go back in for a follow-up surgery last October. Some challenges with my urinary tract, details don't matter, but anyway, I get to the room and a Filipino nurse walks in and says, "Welcome back, Mr. Wilson." She'd been working with me 4 or 5 years earlier and
Yeah.
remembered the conversation we'd had from that point in time.
Oh,
Well,
you're
that
kidding.
is a highly distracting, highly powerful part of the communication that goes on when you're treating people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I get that. So, all right. Well, I wanted to touch on too, just a couple things. You're a Sasky guy. You grew up in
Absolutely.
Saskatchewan, and I was an Ontario guy, but I moved west in my 19. So I played 3 years of junior out in Wilcox, Saskatchewan, and then
Okay. Yep.
I also moved west. But what did you, I guess, aspire to be when you were a young guy growing up in Sask, and then how did you get to Alberta and set up roots there?
Well, I finished high school and got out of North Battleford as quick as I could.
Battleford,
And
yeah.
yeah, so the Battlefords were a big part of my upbringing. And in fact, I wanted out. And then again, I was small for my age and I'd skipped a grade, and getting picked on and bullied just wasn't as much fun um, as the bullies would make it out to be. So I wanted out of there. Now I've gone back and I've done a lot of work, charity work, community work in the Battlefords, and I absolutely
Mhm.
love that community. It's a big part of who I am today. But I got
Mhm.
out of there and I went to Saskatoon. And I kind of make fun of myself for this, but I was in my second year of university before I found out that you have a choice of universities. I thought you went to the closest one. I just thought you did. Like that's how I did
Sure.
kindergarten. That's how I did grade 7. That's how I did grade 12. You
Proximity.
have the
Yeah.
closest school.
Hmm.
And, Saskatoon was closer than Edmonton. So away you go. Now, economically and practically, I didn't have a choice. But here I head off to Saskatoon, and the engineering school there turns out to be one of the top schools in the country. Didn't know that. And finish engineering, and I do what 80% of my classmates do, and that's go to Alberta. That's where all the jobs were. That's where all the
Hmm.
people were. And so it really was a fairly logical progression, but it was a fairly laid out progression. There wasn't a lot of variation, in
Okay.
terms of where the civil engineers, the chemical engineers, the mechanical engineers all went to Calgary, few to Edmonton, and but Alberta was where we were beckoned,
Hmm.
and that was just part of it. So I've been in Alberta since '79, so that makes it 2/3 of my life.
Yep.
And I consider myself a prairie boy. I have
Hmm.
never lost my love of the prairies, because really Alberta and Saskatchewan, and we'll give Manitoba some credit, but really are the prairies. And I'm very proud to be a prairie boy.
Yeah. 100%. When I first got to Saskatchewan myself, even being from Ontario, I felt at home, like it spoke to my values and the culture, and I just felt like I should have been west. And then when I moved to Alberta, it was the mix of all the worlds, because Saskatchewan, of course, you've kind of got more city, more transplants in Alberta, and you've got a good mix. People here think it's a big city, but I mean, I don't think it's.
By the way, I got dragged down to Wilcox about a decade ago to
No
give
way.
a commencement address to the high school.
Hmm.
And they originally asked me if I would speak for 5 to 7 minutes. And I said, if I'm coming that far, I'm not speaking for 5 to 7 minutes. But, I appreciate the offer, but it just doesn't make sense. And so we settled on 15. I took 16 and we were fine. But,
It's in the
anyway,
middle of nowhere. Yeah.
yeah, my daughter played volleyball there a couple times. So I got out to Wilcox,
Hmm.
and Father Athol Murray, and
Yeah.
the
That's
legend
Murray.
that he created,
Hmm.
nothing short of incredible. And so
Yeah.
I get a soft spot whenever someone brings up Wilcox, because that's a very Saskatchewan. It was devoutly Christian. It was
That's
devoutly
right.
Catholic. I get all that. I'm
Mhm.
not active in any faith, but I appreciate those who are, and those who live a good life because they're devoted to their faith, and they're
Mhm.
devoted to hockey. And there's nothing wrong with faith and hockey combined in Wilcox, Saskatchewan.
No, you're exactly right. Some people go out there to get straightened out. Some people go out there to
Oh yeah,
to chase. I was all of the latter. I needed some help. I was a little rough around the edges. I certainly wasn't. I wasn't practicing any. But I'm like yourself. I appreciate all the religions. So I fit in. I loved it. I've got some of my best friends still, lifelong best friends from there. So
I believe.
yeah, great experience. So um had to I wanted to dive into a little bit just for my own personal growth.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you something for my company. You're familiar with a little bit with my GND brand, my young brand that I'm pushing out there. uh Young brand, old guy. So
Yeah,
uh
but it's a brand that's getting some traction. I like what you're doing.
yeah, thank you. It is getting traction. So I have to say I'm having a blast with this. Like, it's kind of liberating because I get to be creative, and it's outside of the drilling world that I've been involved with for so long. But I've always been a marketing guy. But really, what I wanted to ask you is, um, in building a brand, I'm 3 months in, so super young in terms of getting this out there. But um, what advice would you have for someone, setting aside age because it doesn't matter, in building your brand and building a startup? What were some factors or some key points that you would want to
Well,
relay to someone?
two interesting observations. First, I started my life as a drilling engineer. I'm not sure I mentioned that.
You did. I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah.
No, it was incredible as a platform, but we'll come back to that when we talk about drilling.
Okay.
Um, when I have a chance to talk to large audiences, especially the younger audiences, I talk about the importance of three things. One is marketing, two is entrepreneurship, the study of entrepreneurship, three is philanthropy. And let me tie all those together. I happen to believe that the study of marketing is the most overlooked tool and skill that business students, and especially non-business students, fall in or out of, whether you're studying to be a lawyer or an accountant, a welder, a painter. I don't care if it's trades based. I don't care if it's professional. The study of marketing is your point of differentiation. Your
Right.
point of differentiation is your resume. It's your online presence. It's your connections. It's the people you do business with. It's the people you do charity with. That's so marketing, and I could spend an hour on that
For
because,
sure.
and I often say it doesn't matter if you're active in social media. You better know what your competitors, your clients, your customers, and your staff are
Yeah.
doing on social media,
Hmm.
even if you don't want to be active, because it's
Hmm.
how they connect.
Right.
That's number one. Number
Yeah.
two, the study of entrepreneurship. And it's not a matter of studying accounting and finance, it's studying those who've gone before, the guys who started a drilling company, the guys who started a fracking company, the guys who started a pizza delivery service, the people who started a small secondhand car dealership. Doesn't matter. It's got that same vibe. And I remember when we think back, the way the prairies were opened 150 years ago, the farmers, the trappers, the hunters, the fur traders, the fishermen, they're all the entrepreneurs. They're people who didn't have a department to turn to fix something. If
Right.
something went wrong,
That's
they
it.
had to put down the tool they were holding and pick up another tool and fix it. It was the entrepreneurial spirit that built the West. And I get pretty proud and I get pretty emotional when I think about what's happening to us right now when we're letting this laissez-faire attitude of socialism overwhelm the independent thought that we
Yeah.
have. And we launched a god awful budget yesterday where we're
Well,
just paying people to stay home
I was
instead
naturally
of
going to touch on that.
exciting the spirit of entrepreneurship. And I'm sorry, I know this is a 5-hour interview and I'm going to use it all on ranting
No, it's
about the
great. It's great.
spirit of
Love it.
entrepreneurship. But so again, the study of entrepreneurship, and for me, that's the study of people who've done it before. And it's not just the Jimmy Pattisons and the Murray Edwards and the Clay Riddells and the, you know, the Richardsons and the Sobeys and the McCains and some of the big iconic multifamily, multi-generational families. But it's the individuals. It's the John Sotadarius. And I love telling John Sotadarius stories because for the first 2 years of running his business, he lived in his car. Why? Because he had no budget. He couldn't afford to stay in a hotel. He knew which gas stations allowed him to wash up in the morning, but he started something called Pita Pit. He and his partner turned that into 600 franchises. And they started from nothing. They were flipping burgers in Kingston, Ontario. And they came up with the idea that students late at night who were slightly drunk or stoned or sleepy, but they were hungry for good food. And Pita Pit was an option that they created. So John Sotadarius is one of my heroes. It's not, I mean, not that I don't respect the Jimmy Pattisons of this world, but the gap between Jimmy and the rest of the world is so large.
Sure.
But the guy flipping burgers, the guy who's starting a brand new drilling company, the guy who's starting, it's that spirit of entrepreneurship, and we have to celebrate it. And whether you're learning from it or just seeds are being planted and watered slowly, I often criticize Dragon's Den for the sheer stupidity of the comments. And I'm talking about the comments by the dragons. The dragon who says, I'm out because you have no sales. Well, startups have no sales.
Yeah.
That's one of the stupidest excuses to go out that I've ever heard.
I used to chirp that. Yeah. You'd look deeper.
I wanted to understand. I give value to the brain and to the time that's invested, not just the money that's invested. Then you had one of the dragons, I won't name her, but she'd offer airline points in exchange for equity. And I'm going, I've yet to find a bank that'll take airline points to pay my mortgage. So I don't think I really want airline points as a startup. But anyway, so deals failed for lots of different reasons. And so I can criticize Dragon's Den for the stupidity of some of the commentary, the businesses that were missed. But what that show did was plant seeds of entrepreneurship across our country. It didn't water them very well, but it planted the seeds. And to this day, it's one of the longest running reality shows of all time. You know, I think they're running into season 15. I was fortunate to be there when the show took traction. I was 3, 4, and 5. And the big numbered seasons were 4, 5, and 6. So even to this day, I get people saying, well, I saw you on it the other day. Yeah, that's a rerun. I'm nothing with Gilligan. I am not really, it's just Gilligan's Island reruns.
Totally.
So, again, going back, so the study of marketing, the study of entrepreneurship, I also believe that the study of philanthropy, one of the chapters in my book is entitled, Charity is Good Business.
Yeah.
And in early days, 30 years ago, I know when I started talking about building relationships using charity, there was people offended going, well, you can't use charity for that.
Right.
Well, yeah, you can. And in fact, you do. Every time you put your name on a list as one of the donors, every time someone puts their name on a building, they're using charity to build relationships. And at First Energy, the brokerage firm I partnered with 3 phenomenal partners, Edwards, Grafton, and Davidson, but they not only bought into the idea of using charity as our point of differentiation, they got behind it with checks. So they said, yes, Brett, go find places to give money. But then they wrote the checks. The partners were 100%, 110% behind the fact that we would allow. And in fact, over the years, we had literally 400 or 500 different charities, always tied to a client. And in fact, some charities got smart. And instead of approaching us directly going, First Energy's an easy touch, they realized that if they didn't come through a client, so they would literally engage someone who was a client of our firms to ask us for money. And it became obvious and it worked.
It worked.
I'm okay with that.
Sure.
Because it was about the relationships and developing relationships. And I had no problem turning charities down that didn't come through a client because we had hundreds that did. And it's not, we were giving
it didn't make sense.
We were giving way more than any other investment bank. And in fact, we set a platform for people in terms of running events, charity events where you wrote a check when you came to the charity because it was a fundraising event, but we didn't take a penny out of it. We paid for the cause, we paid for the event, and you, as our client, our friend, our customer, our staff, wrote the check to the charity. And so there was no take. Anyway, we used charity creatively to build relationships. And that's really, that's a marketing moment. The understanding of what makes entrepreneurs unique is a marketing moment. And so it comes back to when you planted the word marketing, in this conversation probably 20 minutes ago. That's where it starts. It's just, I'm such, as an engineer, I was pretty, I'm not going to make fun of it, but I didn't find accounting and finance that difficult.
Sure.
The numbers kind of
Came
came
easy
together.
to you.
But where I got excited was the study of marketing.
100%.
And many of my classmates, when I was doing my MBA, I did my master's in business at the University of Calgary. But when I was doing my MBA, many of my classmates looked down on the marketing courses as a necessary evil. Why bother? If
That's
you're
right.
going to go sell toothpaste with Procter and Gamble, or you're going to sell cereal to kids on Saturday mornings with General Mills, study marketing.
Sure.
But as an engineer working in Calgary in the
Makes
oil
no
patch, I
sense.
don't need marketing.
Mhm.
Well, marketing was always my point of differentiation, and still to this day, I'm pretty proud of what we do as this little shop. I'm a one-man band, but I got a dozen people that work with me, and we do more charity work, we do more community work, we do
Yeah.
more investing work, and conversations like this. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. And if it wasn't celebrating the spirit of entrepreneurship with that thread of marketing embedded, we wouldn't be doing this.
100%. Yeah, and I was listening to what you said about people and engineers not understanding marketing. That still goes on today. I've been in that trench in downtown core, marketing drilling rigs for 15 years, and there's always a lot of the companies that don't understand we don't need to spend on marketing, and it's like that literally drives your revenue. You need that marketing, but there's a lot that still don't believe that, and there's a lot of envy involved too, right? Of course, office corporate envy.
Well, it's like the GND. I might see it on your head. There's probably one on your shirt, and I see one stuck logoed up on the corner. There's GND everywhere. And again, that's brand, and brand.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I celebrate it.
Yeah, well, that's great. Okay, I have to touch on one last. Well, I got an echo here. Do you have an echo? No, it's gone. I want to touch on one last thing with you. Being from the East, left when I was 19, been in the West 20 plus years. So for my, I also played in the Maritimes for 3 years. So I've lived in 4 provinces. So, but for my Eastern colleagues, so that they can understand, because I think a lot of people maybe feel that Alberta's kind of whines. What are they bitching about? They got their oil, right? That's kind of the sentiment. But how do we explain to them how a first confederation doesn't really work for the West in its current state, and how energy, I guess, affects the rest of the country, and of course Ontario, Quebec, the East. Why are we upset?
By the way, I spent the summer of my 16th year on a little island called Grand Manan. And there's people on the East Coast who've never heard of Grand Manan. But it's near St. Stephen's, down in the south corner of. It's in fact closer to the United States than it is to Canada. Took a ferry out in a fog, and we weren't sure if the fog would lift. And we were there for a month, and the locals said, "We don't know if the fog will lift this summer or not." It was like, what? We could see 20 feet. Anyway, that was where I first planted the seeds of love for the East Coast. And I still remember one Christmas getting to Peggy's Cove at 3 a.m.
Amazing.
The entire purpose of going to Peggy's Cove was so we could pee in the Atlantic Ocean. But anyway, another story for another day. It was 3 a.m. I don't remember all the details.
Sure.
Anyway, I'm a huge fan of the East. And I'm also a huge fan of Confederation. I've always been a big believer. And in fact, I somewhat facetiously say, to the extent I'm a separatist, I'd like those who don't want to be part of Canada on a fair and equitable basis to leave.
Sure. Yeah.
That's not Alberta. And in fact, Kenny's first approach to trying to keep all Canada together, he's a federalist.
He is.
And I like that.
Yeah.
There's no question, but he's saying, let's work together. But in order to do that, we've got to stop some of the stupidity. Some of the stupidity is treating the St. Lawrence like it's a sewer, and treating the west coast of the Haida Gwaii Islands like it's pristine and never to be touched. And I'm very close to several of the chiefs who run land going up into Prince Rupert and those areas. And they're basically saying, we were never consulted. The eco-terrorist, the eco-alarmist movements captured the ear of the federal government, and we set up a tanker ban. It's okay for tankers to go up and down, but not in and out. And so we shut down the livelihood of many of our First Nations friends. Why? Because we can. That's not right.
Yeah.
Now, I also think that treating the St. Lawrence like a sewage lagoon is why we run ships up and down. We're
Yeah.
protecting the jobs of the longshoremen so that
Mhm.
oil comes in from places that now have no respect for the dignity of women, children, or the environment. And that's, of course, Middle East, it's Northern Africa, it's places that just don't care. When we could have energy security, pipelines are built throughout the world, and we're one of the few nations that's not building pipelines,
Yeah.
that has people fighting against building pipelines. There's the blockades being set up. The blockades, which interfere with commercial traffic, should be resulting in one thing, and that's jail time.
100%.
Not being taken away for a day,
Yeah.
not being fined $50, but it's jail time. You set up an illegal blockade, minimum 30 days while we think about what to do with you.
Mhm.
Anyway, there's stories like that. My point is that we
Yeah.
have an opportunity to have energy security. It's in the interest of our country. It's in the interest of our businesses, and we seemed stuck. And that stuck is why Alberta, when it was coining cash, was sending money into Confederation and seeing nothing back.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear a peep. In Alberta, back in the 90s, the early 2000s, people said, yeah, well, we're doing fine.
That's
And they
fine.
didn't complain about it.
Mhm.
But we would have expected reciprocity. And when 2007 came, the oil markets tanked.
Mhm.
2010, they tanked. 2014, they tanked. We've had a roller coaster. We
Yeah.
could expect a little bit of latitude, a little bit of comfort, a little bit of buffer. Nothing.
Zero.
Nothing. Now it's because the headlines are that, well, we're relying on fossil fuels.
Oil bad.
Fossil fuels, which is how Asia is growing, how India is growing, how Africa is growing.
Mhm.
And when I say growing, they're growing lifestyle, they're growing their economies, and they're doing it off the backs of thoughtful use of fossil fuels. And yet here we are in Canada, trapped in this socialist bubble that's self-imploding. We're
Mhm.
destroying Confederation. We're destroying the poor. What we're doing right now in terms of the economy with the COVID response, we're paying people to stay at home.
We
There's
are.
nothing entrepreneurial about staying at home. There's nothing that grows our economy. And with time, people start to realize they've saved nothing, they've built nothing, they have no skills, they have no tools. Well, we're going to self-implode into a world of civil unrest. Does that mean war? I don't know. But civil unrest is a
Feels like
very
it.
uncomfortable place to be.
Mhm.
And under the current leadership, provincially, I like what we've got. Federally, it's an absolute disaster.
It's a nightmare, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know who even supports him out there anymore. I've been gone for however long. I've been gone for 20 plus years, maybe more. And yeah, obviously a lot more. 25 years. Anyway, my feeds, I see even the people in the East, they've all kind of turned on him. I don't know who's supporting him. I honestly don't. I mean, I guess Sheer, even, who, who they say was blasé and wasn't enough, still got the most conservative votes ever.
Yes.
Right. Popular
Yeah.
votes. So that means there's got to be people turning. I still can't believe he got back in. But
Well, I struggled to understand, even in the last 6 months, how Trudeau could poll better than he had been. Between the way he treated the women in his caucus, the way he was, let's also be clear, he used gender diversity as tokenism.
yeah,
There was nothing, he didn't pick the best 15 people, he picked 15 women. And some of them were above their pay grade in terms of what they were being asked to do. So were some of the guys.
yeah,
He just picked because he wanted diversity. He didn't
yeah.
pick because he wanted talent. And
Mhm.
talent's what it's all about. And let's hope that the pool is large enough that there's going to be a bunch of women. But we need people of all ages, all geography, all religions, all orientation. What diversity matters? Well, in that day, it was gender diversity. So he hit gender diversity, but he didn't worry about ethnic diversity. He didn't worry about, anyway. So there's a whole bunch of things around diversity that I have a challenge with. I think
Yeah.
the best people should rise to the top.
Yeah, the best.
And be celebrated, but we're not doing that right now.
No,
And
100%.
I can also tell you that when I travel in Africa, diversity is not an issue.
Right.
They don't even bring it up, and I sit and talk to I've been on 8, I've climbed Kilimanjaro twice. I've been on 8 safaris. I've spent time with locals, and we sit and talk about what's important to them in terms of their communities and the businesses that they
That's
run.
not it.
The people they're with. Diversity, there's a big issue between white and black in South Africa itself, because they were apartheid and all the rules, a lot of stuff like that. But they're not chasing tokenism. They're chasing the best people. And yet in Canada, all we're chasing is tokenism. So I got a lot of issues with a lot of things that are being done, especially by Trudeau. You know, whether he can laugh off blackface, he can laugh off groping. You know, he groped someone and said, well, you experienced it different than I did.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, really? So that's okay. And yet we vilify people who've made small mistakes. And that's where the cancel culture, and I think, in fact, if anything, Trudeau is supporting and encouraging cancel culture.
He is 100%.
By
Yeah.
being so dismissive, saying, nah, it doesn't really matter what I did. What matters is what you did.
Yeah. Brutal. Well,
Anyway.
I guess, yeah, I love it. That's where I wanted to go. You're, yeah, speaking my ears off here. I love it. But, I guess when this thing's over, COVID's over, you're gonna travel. Like you said, you haven't been able to travel. You're gonna take off somewhere. You got plans. You're gonna go lay your hat somewhere.
Well, I have a son living in Australia, so I can't wait to get him home. But I also can't wait, as I normally do, to go visit him. So there's a bit of back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love traveling. I absolutely do. But I've also, I think like a lot of people, I've fallen in love with my hometown. You know, I've seen more of Calgary. I've seen more of Alberta. I get out to Windermere, which is where my summer home is. I have a daughter in Pemberton, British Columbia. She's under lockdown in terms of trap right now, but we absolutely love this. I mean, Calgary, I always call it my base camp, even when I was traveling a lot. And normally I set up my travel for every second week. So I had a locked week, a travel week, a locked week, travel week. And we had a lot of fun doing that. And I look forward to some sort of return to normalcy.
For sure. Yep. Me too. Can't wait. Well, Brett, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it, man. A lot of good stuff.
Let's do this again in a year and see where we both are.
See where we're at. Love it. Okay.
Post-COVID. All right.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, Brett. Bye-bye.